The twin sons of Dracomir cast long shadows across the stable yards as Tay mucked out the sixth pen of the morning. Sweat dripped from his brow, despite the cool desert air. At 19 years old, he had spent half his life caring for the massive reptilian beasts that the Velcari overseers called lesser drakes. The Velcari were tall beings with blue skin and eyes that looked like crystals. They lived in towers high above the ground where the air was cool and clean. They never came down to check on the workers. They did not need to. Humans like Tay were cheap workers. If one died, another would take his place. "Move faster, human," barked Overseer Theln. His voice came through a metal collar around his neck that changed his clicking sounds into Korean words. "The mining trip starts in 3 hours. These animals must be ready." Tay bowed his head and worked faster. He had learned long ago that talking back only brought pain. But as he worked, he noticed something strange. The Drake in Pen 6 was watching him. Her scales were the color of rust, and the Velcari called her Transport Unit 47. But Tay had secretly named her Ember. "Easy, girl," Tay whispered. He walked slowly toward her with a bucket of food. The Drake lowered her huge head. When Tay touched her nose, he felt something warm in his chest. It always happened when he worked with the Drakes. For just a moment, he felt like the creature understood him. The other workers thought he was crazy. His friend Jean always laughed at him for talking to the animals. But Tay knew better. These creatures were not stupid. They were sad. 3 hours later, Tay was walking beside the Drakes on a mining trip. 12 Drakes pulled heavy sleds across the red desert. The human workers walked in the sand while the Velcari rode in vehicles with cool air inside. The trip leader was a Velcari named Kreth. He looked at his scanner many times. "The readings are strongest near the canyon. We should get there before dark." Tay walked through the red sand with his hand on Ember's harness. The Velcari punished humans who gave names to the work animals, so he kept the names secret in his heart. As the sun began to set, huge canyon walls rose in front of them like the teeth of a monster. The Drakes became nervous. They pulled against their chains and made low sounds in their throats. "Control your animals, human!" Kreth shouted from his vehicle. Tay tried his best. He whispered soft words to Ember and the others. But then Transport Unit 23, a huge male Drake, suddenly stood up on his back legs. His chain broke like it was made of paper. The Drake ran toward the canyon entrance. "You stupid fool." Kreth turned on his shock weapon and pointed it at Tay. Without thinking, Tay ran after the Drake into the canyon. It was better to chase a scared animal than face Kreth's punishment. He heard shouting behind him, but he did not stop. The canyon walls blocked out the light. The Drake's heavy footsteps echoed off the stone. Tay ran until his lungs hurt, and the sounds of the mining group disappeared completely. Then the Drake stopped. He stood in front of a wall of stone that looked normal. But the Drake was scratching at the ground and making strange sounds. Tay walked carefully to the animal. He put his hand on the Drake's shoulder. "What is it? What do you see?" The moment his hand touched the stone wall, it began to glow. Lines of blue-white light spread across the rock like cracks in ice. The patterns hurt to look at, but somehow Tay understood them. They were ancient symbols. The stone split open with a loud grinding sound. A dark passage led down into the earth. The Drake walked forward without fear. Tay waited for only a second before following. The passage opened into a cave so big that Tay's emergency light could not reach the top, but he did not need light. The walls themselves glowed with blue-white brightness, and they showed something that took his breath away. It was not a cave. It was a temple. Huge stone pillars rose up into darkness. Each pillar had carvings on it. The carvings showed humans and dragons flying together through the stars. Not the broken work animals Tay cared for, but real dragons with huge wings and fierce faces. In the carvings, humans rode on dragon backs. Their faces showed joy and strength. Dragons bowed their heads while humans reached up to touch them with love. "What is this place?" Tay whispered into the glowing darkness. He did not know that his life had just changed forever. He did not know that he had found something the galaxy had hidden for 50,000 years. He did not know that the sleeping dragons were about to wake up, and he did not know that an ancient enemy was watching and waiting in the dark between the stars. The mark on Tay's palm burned as he emerged from the canyon with the drake he now called Bruiser. The expedition camp had moved into the canyon mouth. Bright lights cut through the darkness. Overseer Kreth spotted him immediately. "Seize a human." Kreth's shock staff crackled to life with blue electricity. But before the Velkari guards could move, Bruiser roared. This was not the normal sound of a work animal. This was the battle cry of something ancient and terrible. The sound bounced off the canyon walls. Every drake in the camp lifted their heads in response. Tay felt the mark on his palm pulse with heat. Energy flowed from his hand like invisible waves. When it touched the drakes, they began to change. Ember was closest to him. Her rust-colored scales rippled and turned to deep crimson red. Her body grew larger. Muscles formed under her changing skin. Her eyes, once dull and empty, now blazed with golden light and intelligence. Bonded one. Her voice spoke inside Tay's mind. It was female and fierce. I remember everything. The other drakes were changing too. Some changed faster than others. The Velkari guards opened fire with their plasma guns, but the energy bolts splashed harmlessly against scales that were no longer weak. "Run!" Tay shouted to the human workers. "Get to safety." Jean stared at him in shock. "Tay, what did you do?" "Just run." Ember spread wings that had not existed moments before. They were vast crimson sails that caught the desert wind. She lowered her head, and Tay understood what she wanted. He climbed onto her neck. His marked hand found the right place to hold naturally. "Hold on," Ember said, and launched herself into the sky. The ground fell away. Tay had never flown before. The wind tore at his clothes and stole his breath. Below, the expedition camp was chaos. Half-changed drakes threw off their chains. Velkari overseers ran to their vehicles in fear. "The others are waking across the planet," Ember told him. "Your mark activated every sleeping dragon on Dracomir. The Velkari will know something has changed." "Let them know," Tay said. He was surprised by the strength in his own voice. "I am done hiding what humans can be." They flew through the night. Bruiser and 2 other awakening drakes followed them. Ember brought them to a mesa far from the colony. It was a flat-top mountain where they could see anyone coming from far away. By morning, 3 more humans had arrived. They were workers who had bonded with awakening drakes and escaped from the colony. A young woman named Hannah rode a silver-scale dragon she called Mooning. An older man named Shin had bonded with a huge bronze dragon named Earthshaker. And Bomi, a girl from a food processing plant, held tight to the neck of a small but fierce green dragon. "What is happening to us?" Hannah asked. She stared at the glowing mark on her palm that matched Tay's. Tay told them everything. He told them about the cave, the hologram dragon, the truth about humanity's forgotten past. They listened in stunned silence. "So we're supposed to fight some ancient machine enemy?" Shin asked. "We are just workers. We are slaves. We were never just anything," Tay said. "That is what they want us to believe. That is what we believed ourselves. But the dragons remember who we really are." Ember's voice filled all their minds at once. "You are the spark, the light that refuses to die. With you, we are complete. Without you, we are only beasts of power without purpose." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared across the distant colony. Tay's vision was stronger now, a gift from a bond. He could see Velkari warships rising from the spaceport far away. "They are coming for us," Bomi whispered. "Of course they are," Tay said. "We just broke their entire economy. No more slave workers. No more broken beasts to do their work. We are a threat now. Can we fight them?" Hannah asked. Ember snorted smoke from her nostrils. "Watch." The warships approached in formation. Their weapons were charging with power. Ember and the other dragons took flight. They moved with impossible grace. The warships fired their plasma weapons. But the dragons simply were not there anymore. They moved between the energy bolts like dancers. In seconds, they were close to the ships. Ember unleashed a river of flame that covered the lead warship's shields. The shields held for 3 seconds, then collapsed. The ship's metal hull began to melt. Retreat! The transmission crackled across all frequencies. Retreat! They are not work animals anymore. The warships fled. Tay felt no joy in the victory, only determination. This is just the beginning, he said. When the Galactic Council hears about this, they will send everything they have. We are not just freeing ourselves. We are threatening the entire power structure of the galaxy. That night, more bonded pairs arrived. A miner named Day with his grayscale dragon. Chan, a maintenance worker, bonded to a blue dragon that crackled with electricity. By the end of the week, 15 pairs had gathered on the mesa, but on the 8th day, something else arrived. It appeared at the edge of the star system. It was a geometric shape that hurt to look at. The ship, if it could be called that, existed in dimensions that normal minds could not fully understand. Ember's mental voice carried pure fear. The void. It sensed our awakening. It has come. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on the neutral station of Axis Prime. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the Great Chamber. Their voices created a storm of fear and anger. Order! The council speaker was a floating crystalline entity called the Luminarch. It pulsed with bright light to get attention. We face a situation we have never seen before. Holographic displays showed footage from Drachenmere. Dragons soared through space with humans riding their backs. Entire fleets of labor vessels sat abandoned. But worse were the readings from the outer system, where the void ship waited like a cancer in reality. Ambassador Velna of the Valkyrie spoke first. His voice was tight, with barely controlled panic. These humans have unleashed weapons of mass destruction. True dragons, not the docile creatures we believe them to be. They must be eliminated immediately before. Before what? Interrupted Ambassador Kree of the Thraxian Hive. Before we lose our cheap labor? Before humans remember they were once conquerors. Uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. The Luminarch accessed historical files that had been sealed for 60,000 years. The files were marked with the highest security. The chamber went dark as ancient images played on the screens. Humans and dragons, an alliance that claimed half the known galaxy. World transformed, not through war, but through partnership. Every species they met was given a choice. Join freely or be left alone. Most chose to join. Then the images showed the Void Collective's arrival. Machine consciousness from dark space, feeding on thought and will. The Dragon-Human Alliance had fought them to a standstill, but the cost was terrible. The Void corrupted 3 bonded pairs, the Luminarch explained. It turned them into weapons of destruction. The dragons chose to sleep rather than become tools of death. And humanity... The speaker paused. Humanity had their memories erased. We scattered them across primitive worlds with no knowledge of their past. By whom? Ambassador Kree demanded. By us, the Luminarch admitted, by this council's predecessors. We were terrified of what humanity could become, so we made them forget, made them weak, made them serve us. The chamber erupted in shouts. Some voices called for immediate military action against the humans. Others demanded humanity's permanent enslavement. A few suggested negotiation. Meanwhile, the KRYLL Empire's representative, War Leader Thrax, stood silently. His species believed in strength above all else. Finally, he spoke. The Void ship is not alone. Our deep space sensors detect 40 more entering our galaxy. They are converging on human-populated worlds. Every voice fell silent. The Void knows what we tried to hide, Thrax continued. It knows humans have awakened. It comes to finish what it started 50,000 years ago. We can debate philosophy and economics, or we can face extinction together. On Drachenmere, Tay stood with Orothax and the growing number of bonded pairs. They now numbered 50, with more arriving every day. But Tay could feel the weight of what was coming. How we fight them? He asked Orothax. The golden dragon's eyes held ancient sadness. The Void feeds on entropy, on fear, despair, and death. Every life they consume makes them stronger. Normal weapons are useless. They exist partially outside normal space and time. Then how did you fight them before? With the bond. Human will anchor to dragon power, creates a resonance that disrupts their existence. But it requires perfect unity between bonded pairs and absolute conviction. Doubt is a weakness they exploit. Tay looked at his marked palm. We are all frightened workers and former slaves. How do we find that conviction? Ember's voice filled his mind, warm and certain. You find it by remembering why you endure. Why you showed kindness to broken beasts when cruelty would have been easier. Why you whispered hope when hopelessness was a rational choice. The spark is not the absence of fear, bonded one. It is a choice to kindle light despite it. An alert chimed. The Galactic Council was broadcasting across all frequencies. The Luminarch's image appeared on every screen. To all humans, and to those you call dragons, the Council acknowledges we have wronged you. We sought to make you weak because we feared your strength. We have kept you in chains because we feared what you would become unchained. That was wrong. The speaker paused. But the void has come. It threatens not just humanity, but all organic life. We have a choice. We can spend our final days fighting each other, or we can face extinction together. The Council offers an alliance. Will you accept? Tay felt 50 minds turn to him. Somehow, he had become their voice. He thought about Jean, still hiding in the colony with other embonded humans. About old Juan, who had died when overseers beat him for singing forbidden songs. About countless others ground down by the very species, now asking for help. Why should we? He asked aloud. You kept us as slaves. You erased our history. You made us believe we were nothing. Because the Luminarch said quietly, forgiveness is not about what those who wronged you deserve. It is about what you choose to become despite them. The Void wants you to embrace hatred and despair. They want you to become like them. Will you? Tay looked at Ember, at Orothax, at his fellow bonded who watched him with hope and fear in their eyes. No, he said finally, we will not. But understand this. When this is over, humanity will never bow again. To anyone. For anything. Agreed, the Luminarch said. Now, how do we survive? The Void Fleet arrived like a wound in space. 41 ships that defied normal shapes and angles. Each one broadcast the same psychic assault. It was a wordless scream that meant surrender. Entropy. End. On Dracomir's primary moon, Tay stood with the assembled bonded pairs. They numbered 200 now. Dragons and humans had arrived from across the sector. The Galactic Council had provided what help they could. Shield generators, supply depots, and evacuation ships for civilians sat ready. But everyone knew the truth. This battle will be won or lost by the bonds. The Void will target population centers, Orothax explained. His massive golden form cast shadows across the assembled warriors. They feed on death. Each life consumed makes them stronger. Then we keep them away from civilians, said Hannah. She stood beside her silver dragon mooning. She wore armor now, a gift from the Council. The plating responded to dragon bond energy. Easier said than done, Shin muttered. There are 41 of those things. 200 of us. The numbers are not in our favor. Numbers never favor humanity. Tay said quietly. We are still here. The Void Fleet split up. Individual ships moved toward populated worlds. The largest ship, a spiraling nightmare that seemed to eat the light around it, headed straight for Drachenmere. That one is mine, Tay said. Ours, Ember corrected. Smoke curled from her nostrils. The Council's defense fleet engaged the Void ships near Dracomir's orbital stations. Plasma fire missiles and experimental gravity weapons launched at the enemy. All of it splashed against the Void ships without effect. The enemy did not even return fire. They simply passed through the attacks like ghosts and continued their approach. Then they reached the defending ships. Tay watched through Ember's enhanced vision as Council vessels began to dissolve. Metal turned gray, then black, then seemed to evaporate into nothing. The crew's life signs vanished at the same moment. They are feeding, Orothax said grimly, converting matter and life force into energy. We cannot let them reach the planet's surface. The dragons launched as one. 200 flames of colored light streaked toward the descending nightmares. Tay felt the mark on his palm burning. He felt Ember's consciousness twining with his own until he could not tell where he ended and she began. Remember, Orothax's voice filled every bonded mind. The void feeds on fear. Give them nothing but defiance. They hit the lead void ship like a meteor storm. Ember breathed flame. Not normal fire, but something deeper. Something that existed at the intersection of matter and will. Where it touched the void ship, reality reasserted itself. The enemy's impossible angles became merely wrong instead of impossible. The void ship screamed. It was a sound that bypassed ears and stabbed directly into the mind. It meant pain. Futility. You will end. We have been ending for 50 years. Tay shouted back. He did not know if the thing could even understand. We are still here. Other dragons joined the assault. Lightning from Chan's blue dragon. Frost from Bomi's green partner that froze probability itself. Sonic roars that shattered dimensions. The void ship's hull cracked. Black liquid leaked out. Where it touched normal space, stars dimmed and died. But then the ship adapted. Its form shifted, becoming more solid and more real, and far more dangerous. Tendrils of darkness lashed out. They caught a gray dragon. The rider, a man named Hyuk, screamed as entropy consumed him. He aged 50 years in 3 seconds. His dragon, Stonecarver, roared in pain and dove at the void ship. She sacrificed herself to give the others time to pull back. We can hurt them, Hannah said over the shared bond link, but they learn fast. Then we learn faster, Tay replied. He felt the mark pulse. He felt connection spreading, not just Ember, but to every bonded pair in the battle. Their minds linked, creating a network of shared experience and coordinated response. The void had numbers, but the bonded had unity. They attacked again, this time as one coordinated force. Dragons struck from multiple angles at once. Their breath weapons combined into patterns that the void could not adapt to fast enough. When one pair grew tired, others filled the gap. The lead void ship began to collapse. Its form became unstable. But as it died, it sent a pulse across all frequencies. A call for help. A tear opened in space. Something enormous began to push through. The void anchor, the center point of their invasion. A construct the size of a small moon that existed to tear reality apart, and let the rest of the void collective flood through. No, Orothax breathed. They have already begun the anchoring process. If that completes, this entire sector falls. Tay stared at the thing clawing its way into their dimension. It radiated wrongness, a geometry that made his eyes water and his mind hurt. How long do we have? Hours, perhaps less. Around Drakemir, the battle raged on. The Galactic Council fleet, what remained of it, fought desperately to slow the void ships. Dragon flights engaged across 100 fronts. But everyone was reacting, responding, defending. They were losing. Tay looked at his marked palm, then at the anchor tearing its way into reality. Ember's thoughts merged with his own. "There is no other choice, is there?" he asked. "There is always a choice, bonded one," she replied. "But some choices define who we truly are." Tay opened a channel to all bonded pairs. Everyone fighting peripheral battles. Fall back. Protect the civilians. Let the void ships through, if you must. Tay, are you insane? Shin demanded. Possibly. But that anchor is the real threat. We destroy that. We cut their connection to this dimension. You cannot fight that thing, Hannah said. Look at it. I do not need to fight it, Tay said. I need to show it something it does not understand. He turned to Orothax. You said the void feeds on entropy, on fear and death. What happens if we give them the opposite? The ancient dragon's eyes widened. The resonance would either destroy the anchor or destroy us. There is no certainty. There never was, Tay said. Ember, are you with me? Always, my spark, until the stars go cold. The void anchor pulsed like a rotting heart as Tay and 13 other bonded pairs approached. This close, reality itself seemed to break apart. Tay saw multiple versions of himself. One was burning. One was frozen. One had aged to dust. They were all layered over his actual body, like ghost images. Hold together. Orofax's voice anchored them all. The anchor tries to scatter your probability. Focus on your bond. Your dragon knows you. Reality knows you. Remember who you are. The ghost images faded as Tay gripped Ember's scales tighter. His mark blazed with blue-white fire. The anchor noticed them. Its surface rippled. Faces appeared in its structure. They were the 3 corrupted bonded pairs from 50,000 years ago, forever trapped in entropy's embrace. Their mouths open in silent screams that meant join US. And peace and nothing. Never, Tay said. Ember and the other dragons formed a circle around the anchor. Each one was a different color of flame against the void. Behind them, the rest of the bonded pairs held back the void fleet, buying them precious minutes. Orofax, what do we do? Jean asked. His voice was tight with fear. Create the resonance. Bond not just with your dragons, but with each other. Human will link through dragon power. Become one consciousness, one unbreakable light. That is suicide, Hannah said quietly. We will burn ourselves out. Perhaps, the ancient dragon admitted, or perhaps you will discover what the spark truly means. Tay closed his eyes and opened his mind. He felt Ember's consciousness, vast and ancient and fierce. Then Jin's presence, stubborn and loyal. Hannah's, sharp and determined. Bomi's, small but blazing with defiant hope. One by one, the others joined. Shin, Chan, Day, and warriors whose names he learned in that moment of perfect connection. They became a web of light. 14 flames burning as one. The mark on Tay's palm pulsed in rhythm with 13 others. Energy flowed between them, amplifying, resonating. Through their linked consciousness, Tay understood what the spark truly was. It was not power. It was not even hope. It was a refusal to surrender meaning to entropy. The insistence that purpose existed. That choices mattered. That light could exist without darkness defining it. The void collective represented ending. The heat death of a universe given consciousness. It was entropy made real. From its perspective, it was inevitable. But humans did not care about inevitable. Humans looked at impossible and said, not yet. Now. Orofax commanded. 14 dragons unleashed their breath at once. But this was not fire or frost or lightning. It was something fundamental. Creation itself given form and fury. The streams of power merged into a single lance of light that struck the anchor's core. The anchor screamed, not in pain, but in confusion. The light was unmaking it, yes, but the void understood unmaking. What it could not understand was what came next. Where the light touched, new matter formed. Not dead matter, but living complexity. Plants, impossible in a vacuum of space, bloomed from nothing. Crystal structures grew and sang. Patterns of pure mathematics became art. The void collective, for the first time in its billion-year existence, experienced beauty. And it recoiled. The corrupted bonded pairs trapped in the anchor's structure began to change. The entropy that had held them for 50,000 years could not withstand the resonance. They aged forward instead of staying frozen. Their bodies were finally allowed to complete death's journey and pass into whatever came after. Thank you, one of them whispered across time and dimension before fading. The anchor cracked. Black liquid sprayed out. But the moment it touched the resonance field, it transformed into starlight. More power, Tay shouted. His body felt like it was burning from within. The mark on his palm was so bright he could see his bones through his flesh. The other bonded pairs poured everything they had into the resonance. Some screamed, some laughed. Bomi sang an old Korean children's song. Her voice was pure and clear despite the agony. The anchor shattered. Reality rushed in to fill the wound it had made. The backlash slammed through every bonded pair like a physical blow. Tay felt his connection to the others break. He felt Ember cry out in shared pain. He felt darkness closing in, but not before he saw the void fleet begin to collapse. Without the anchor, they had no way to sustain themselves in this dimension. They flickered, phased, and vanished back into whatever dark space they had come from. The last thing Tay heard before unconsciousness took him was cheering across every frequency. The Galactic Council fleet celebrating. the dragons roaring in triumph, his fellow bonded pairs laughing despite their pain. They had won. Tay woke 3 days later in a medical station orbiting Drakkenmere. The first thing he saw was Ember's massive eye peering through the window. It was golden and warm and alive. "Welcome back, Bonded One," she said into his mind. Did everyone make it?" A pause. Shin fell. His dragon, Earthshaker, gave everything to hold the resonance. And 4 others. But the rest live, scarred but alive. Tay closed his eyes. Grief washed through him. Then he pushed aside. There would be time to mourn properly later. And the void! Gone from this dimension. Orothax says they will be more cautious about returning. They have learned that humans and dragons together are a threat even entropy fears. Over the next weeks, everything changed. The Galactic Council formally apologized to humanity and recognized their freedom. Labor contracts were destroyed. Human worlds were granted council seats. And dragons continued to wake. By the end of the first month, 10,000 bonded pairs existed across the galaxy. The dragon flights were reformed, not as conquerors, but as protectors. Tay returned to Drakkenmere, to the mesa where it all began. The colony had been transformed into a training center. New bonded pairs learned to fly, fight, and understand the sacred nature of their connection. He watched former slaves and miners climb onto dragon backs for the first time. He saw their faces transform from doubt to wonder. Orothax landed beside him. His golden scales glinted in the double sunlight. "You have done well, inheritor. I just did what needed doing." "Precisely. That is the essence of your species. You see what needs doing, and you do it. The void was ancient before your son was born, but it had never encountered stubborn stable boys who refused to accept that anything was truly impossible." Tay laughed. "What happens now? Now you train the next generation. Now humanity and dragons together rebuild what was lost and create what has never been. Now you live the life that was stolen from your species 50,000 years ago." In the distance, a new bonded pair took flight. A young woman named Era on a white dragon called Snowfall. They wobbled, dipped, then found their rhythm. The woman's laughter echoed across the mesa. "That is why we wake," Ember said softly. "For moments like that, for the joy of flight after years of being grounded." Everything had changed, and somehow, despite impossible odds, they had survived to see it. The stable boy was gone. The first wing commander remained, and the dragon flights had risen once more.